Shalom, my friends from here in the Holy Land. I hope that you can hear me. I'm very excited to have this time with you again. As you remember, it's every single Tuesday at this time that I'm going to be speaking to you from Israel on different issues, different topics. I'll be talking to you from different places every single Tuesday live from the Holy Land. So remember that I love to hear from you. I always read all the comments and all the suggestions and all the questions. So feel free to participate and jump in with your thoughts, with your prayers, with everything that you want to share with us. And in the future, I'll also be very happy to take suggestions on things that you want to see, places you want me to take you from here in Israel, and different topics that we can address. So this is our special time, Tuesdays live together from here in Israel, that you could have your weekly taste of Israel, taste of the Holy Land. Shalom, Cindy Green, you say shalom sister, I say shalom sister back to you. And I hope everyone is doing very well this morning. There's something that I wanted to speak about with you that we all kind of underestimate, I think. It's the power of prayer, the power of blessings, and that really goes back to the power of speech. And so the Bible addresses this directly. How does God look at us? How does he rely on us when it comes to speech and blessings and prayer? And so the first thing that we have to explore is, what is speech? How does God and the Bible look at speech? What's expected of us? Do our words really mean anything? There are prayers of the heart, as we say. And so if you have prayers of the heart, why do you need prayers of the lips? And if you think something good, do you get credit in God's glory, in God's kingdom in heaven? If you have something good in your heart, do you get credit for that? Because even if it didn't go to your lips. And so I want to start out this teaching actually with a prayer. There's a prayer that we say every single day, actually 3 times a day we say it. And in Judaism we say it 3 times a day. It's how we start our prayers, that we say, Hashem sfatai tiftach ufi agid tilatecha. Lord, open my lips so I may declare your praises. And so every time I start a teaching, or I do a speech, or I have an interview, I always say silently in my heart, I always say, Hashem sfatai tiftachu fi agid letecha. That's my prayer, that God should open up my lips so I can say his praises, directly from Psalms. And so now that we're talking about prayer and blessings, I want to share that with you, that we should all just have our heart here, have our soul here, present, open to learn God's teachings, and I pray that he will give me the right words to share it as well. So in order to understand what blessings and prayers are, we really have to understand what speech is. And it comes directly in the story of creation. In the story of Genesis, it says that God spoke, Vayhi erev bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, vayhi erev vayivoker yom rishon. That we learn that God spoke and said, the first day, the first evening, it was evening, it was day, the first day, that every day when he created different things, he would speak it into being. And I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but it's a little bit funny, right? The story of creation is the beginning. There's nobody here yet to hear God speak. Man was only created on the 6th day, right? So there were no humans, and even animals in the beginning weren't created. So why was God speaking? Why did God speak in the story of creation? Well, we learn everything from the Bible, and we know that there's no word or even letter in the Bible that wasn't needed. Everything is there to teach us something. And so we learn from the very beginning that words create. Even when there was no one here to hear it, God spoke creation into being so that we could learn from God that every time we speak, we are a vision of God. We are in the image of God, and we are able to create just like God. What is the blessing and the gift of speech that God gave us? It's the ability to create. Because every time we say something, we're creating something. So there's even something called Lashon Hara. In Hebrew it's called, when you speak bad about someone. And it's forbidden from the Bible to speak bad about someone. Why? Because when you speak bad about someone, you're creating bad things for them. You're creating bad things around it. You're making a bad creation. And as creations of God, we have to make sure to always create only good things. What God created was perfect, right? God on the sixth day created man, he created woman. He looked, he saw what he created was good. Vayhi ki tov. And then he was able to rest on the Sabbath. And so what we learn from that is that everything we say, we have to know what we're saying is good. And so there's even in Hebrew what we do a lot in Israel is that if we say about, if God forbid, you would say in English, something would happen, right? You don't want to say something bad happened without even saying God forbid. Or you don't even want to make a promise. You're not allowed to promise according to the Bible, right? You have to say, in Hebrew we say bli neder, without promising. Even if you tell your child, we're going to go tomorrow to watch a movie, you say bli neder without promising, because the power of words is so powerful, you're creating. And that leads us into Psalm 141:3, where it says, set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Watch over the door of my lips. That's what it says in Psalm 141. And in Psalm 19, it says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord. And so we learn that it's our heart, the meditation of our heart, that transforms into words. And that is the holy chariot that we bring up to God. We have to be so careful with our words, because that is the sacrifice, if you will, the reach nichoach lashem, the beautiful smell to God that goes up to heavens from the sacrifice in the temple. We don't have sacrifices now. And so what we have are our words. And what we learn from Psalms 19, the meditation of our hearts and the words of our mouth, let it be acceptable in your sight, O Lord. We learn that we have the meditation of our heart, which transform into the words of our mouth, which transforms into action. That we have to be so careful with the words of our mouth, because that will determine the actions that we take. And so many people ask, what is prayer? I'm just going to get my water bottle here. Many people ask, what is prayer? What's prayer? When did prayer start? Where does prayer come from? And the answer is that we've always had prayer. But there's two different kinds of prayer. We have organized prayer, which is when Jews go to the synagogue, Christians go to church, and we pray formal words from a prayer book. This is my prayer book. You could see it's worn and it's torn, but it's because it's, thank God, had lots of use. But words of the prayer book that we say, that's organized prayer. And actually, in Judaism, organized prayer takes the place of the temple work that we used to do. So we learn about the temple. That was a place that all the nations would come into Jerusalem and bring their sacrifices on the high holidays and for all different sorts of occasions, as thanksgiving to God, as apology to God for forgiveness. As celebration, we would bring our tithes. And so now all of the things that we used to have in the temple service, we had to make a new way of doing it. So the sacrifices that were brought, now we have prayer that we bring. Our words are a sacrifice to God. And so we better be careful that those sacrifices smell good. We better be careful that our sacrifices are pure. Not like so many times in the Bible that we've learned when impure sacrifices are brought, or we try to do something different than God. No, our words better be pure. Our words better be positive. Our words better be creating beautiful, wonderful, holy things, just as God created through words in the story of creation. And so we have the words that we speak and the meditations of our hearts, and then we have the songs that we sing. Sometimes I imagine, we're so limited to what we see, but I always say that our life here in this world is so short. It's kind of like coming in the middle of a movie, seeing part of the movie, the middle part of the movie, and thinking that you understand what the movie is about, but really you're just getting one small part of the movie. when you think about what was in the temple in Jerusalem, where the high priests would wear their beautiful garments and they would have pomegranate bells hanging down from their garments and all different kinds of beautiful natural stones that they would wear. And as they did their temple work, there would be the Levites that were singing. What were they singing? They were singing prayers. They weren't singing Beyonce. They were singing prayers. They were singing holy words. Words are prayers, are holiness, are creating, which is why we also have to be so careful what we listen to, because we're listening to someone else's creations, and we want those creations that are going into our ears to be beautiful, to be creating good thoughts, good things in our hearts, good words, good actions for God. And so it's so important in so many places to watch your words. But in order to watch your words, you have to watch what you have in your heart. You have to watch what you have in your mind. And you have to watch what you're listening to. Because your words are the manifestation of all the different things that you have going on inside. And it's one step before action. And so right before the step before either sinning or doing a good deed are words. And so you could change any situation through words. And I see that so much now, especially with the elections in America that I've seen around the world. There are some places that are spreading peace and saying, okay, this is the reality we have. Now we have to work with it. Let's all come together. Let's all communicate. Let's all find nonviolent solutions to our different world visions that we have. And then there are some that are using their words not as prayers, not to build like God did in the story of Genesis, but to break like we've seen so many times. There are people who are using their words to separate, that they're only focusing on the extremism. They're only focusing on the negativity, and they're using their words to go against the other side, to go against people who look differently as them. And what that's doing is spreading hatred. It's spreading not unity, but separation, which is not a godly characteristic. And so I hope that up until now, I've kind of showed you how important words are, how important songs are. There's no such thing as it was only words. No, words are our creation. And once we create, once we speak, we can never take it back. In fact, on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the first thing that we do, the way that we open up the prayers on the Day of Atonement, the holiest day on the calendar, is by saying, I'm sorry. We're saying sorry and taking back any promises that we made. Because a promise isn't just a promise. These days we say, I promise, wink, wink. Or what do some kids do, crossing their fingers or something? No. There's no such thing as winking or crossing your fingers. A promise is a promise. And if you break that promise, you're breaking a part of creation that you already said that you were going to make. That is unacceptable. We have to be so careful with our words, because our words is the holy reach nichoach l'Hashem, the holy incense that goes up to God from the sacrifices. And either it will be beautiful in God's eyes, and then we could open it up for blessings, or it will not be beautiful in God's eyes, and then, God forbid, we could see bad things coming down. And so words are not just words. Promises are not just promises. Saying I love you is not just saying I love you. It's something from the heart. And just as well, saying I hate you is not something that you can say or take lightly. In my family, the worst thing we could say to each other is saying I hate you. We don't say that. Never. It's worse than a curse word. Because we're creating a reality that we don't want to create. Our words, God has given us as a gift. And as we all have seen, He can take away as a gift also. God gives us a gift, and if we don't use it to do good, to create good, God could take it away as well. In fact, one of my favorite things, I don't know how many of you have heard of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rabbi of Lubavitch. He was a very, very saintly man who lived in my lifetime. He died not too long ago. And what he would always say, in Hebrew, we call a hospital the Beit Cholim, the house of the sick. Sorry, it's getting cold and dry here, so I have to drink water. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe would say, in Hebrew we call a hospital Beit Cholim, which literally means the house of the sick. But what the Lubavitcher Rebbe would say is, don't call it Beit Cholim. There's a big power in words. Call it Beit Refuim, the house of healing. Because when you call it the house of the sick, that's the energy that God puts there. That's when you call it the house of the sick, that's what God puts there. When you call it the house of healing, that's the energy that God puts there. We have to be so careful with our words that even to refer to a place, we have to be careful what we call it. A doctor isn't someone who just acts on his own. He gets healing powers from God. And we have to go to the doctor knowing that it's God behind him, that it's God who heals, and God could send healing through any different place, that we have to pray with our lips that God will send healing. God created the world through speech and left it up to us to sustain the world through speech. We better be careful what we say, how we speak, which leads to the topic of today's discussion, which is prayer. Now that we determined that speech is so powerful and we have the ability to make or break this reality and invite God's blessing or, God forbid, curses through our speech, now we could start talking about prayer. You can't talk about prayer before you understand what the power of speech is. Now we could pray. We should start every single day in prayer. In Judaism, there's organized prayer that correlates to the sacrifices that we spoke about. 3 times a day, you go to the temple and you say organized prayers that are in the synagogue. They're in the prayer book. We have the morning prayers, the afternoon prayers, and the night prayers. But are those the only prayers we say? No. There's a prayer for everything, because everything in this world we have to bring up to God. There's nothing that happens that is not from God. And so if we don't have those holy eyes to see it through godliness, we're missing the boat. We're simply missing the boat. There's no such thing as fate. There's no such thing as chance. There's such thing as God. And when we attribute every single thing that happens to God, and when we invite God into our life through prayers every single step of the way, we will be seeing miracles and wonder with our very eyes every single second of every day. And so the moment I wake up, the first thing I do when I open my eyes is say this: Modeh ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam shechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla rabba emunatecha. What that means in English, for all of those who don't speak English, and it's in the prayer book because every single person should say that the first thing they say when they wake up is, I gratefully thank you, O living and eternal King, for you have restored and returned my soul within me with compassion. Abundant is your faithfulness. We thank God for waking up. Because if you wake up every morning and think that that's a given, you're wrong. And if you think that it's not God who gave you back your soul in the morning when you woke up, you're wrong. And if you wake up and say, oh Lord, it's you who have given me my soul back to start this day with, you are right. God is with you. You're waking up and inviting God through prayer to come into your body so that your actions can be godly. And the last thing, before we go to sleep, I'll give you a guess what we do. Prayer. As I put my children to sleep, when I go to sleep, when my husband goes to sleep, when anyone goes to sleep, I remember being a young child and my parents would sit with me and they would say, the last thing on your lips should be prayers to God. Because it's not a given that you had this beautiful day. No matter how good or bad things were, it's not a given that you are alive for this day to experience it. And before you go to sleep, it should be words of thanks on your mouth to God for giving you that day. Everything in life could transform into a prayer. I pray for my children. When you see a beautiful view, there's even a prayer to do, to say, Ma rabu masecha Hashem. How beautiful are your creations, O Lord. That's what you say when you see a beautiful sight. When somebody was sick, and then you see them and they're healed, you say, Baruch Rofeh Cholim. Blessed is the healer of the sick. Everything in life goes back to God. I could give you example after example after example. After you go to the bathroom, there's a blessing that you're supposed to say after you go to the bathroom, thanking God for enabling you to go to the bathroom. Because if He didn't enable it, you wouldn't be able to live. Everything is from God. And when you start having godly eyes and seeing that everything is from God, you want to start thanking Him with your words, with your prayers. When you see a loved one, there's a prayer to say. When you see a beautiful view, there's a prayer to say. When you see someone who is sick and then is healed, there's a prayer to say. When you wake up, you say a prayer. When you go to sleep, you say a prayer. Every second there should be prayers on your lips, whether it's organized or from the heart. Your work can turn into a prayer. No matter how much you hate your work, if you look at it from God, it's a prayer. It's a blessing, and it could be a blessing to you. You have to see it through godly eyes, and that's what prayer is coming to teach us. Everything is in our hands. We could pray for the sick, and God will answer. Not always the way we want. Sometimes God answers no, but God is with us. God is listening. And the prayers that we say for someone who's sick, you don't know how those energies that we're putting out into the world and that we're lifting up to God, you don't know how that's going to affect someone else. Maybe someone else in the family that was supposed to get sick, and because you said these prayers, they're going to be healed before they were even sick. Or children in the next generation, grandchildren. Prayers are eternal. Things in this world are not eternal. Money, clothing, looks, that's not eternal. Our prayers are eternal. That prayers we say for future generations are eternal. Our children and grandchildren will feel it. So many times I look at my life and I say, Lord, I'm so blessed. I live in the land of Israel. I have the most amazing husband. I have 4 beautiful children. I have a job that I love. I have you. How am I so lucky? And I always go back to what we call zchut avot, in the merit of my ancestors, because I don't deserve this. But my ancestors prayed for me. My ancestors prayed for me. They did good deeds for me. And now I am reaping those benefits because those godly acts are eternal. And so I encourage you, friends, pray about everything and bless. When we bless each other, it's not just words. When I say, I bless you that you should have a wonderful day or a good morning, put intention into that God should be with those words. When you say good night, put intention and blessings into that. Everything could be a prayer. And our words are blessings, whether you realize it or not. Our words are prayers, whether you realize it or not. And so realize it, put intention into it, and you will be happier. The people around you will be happier. You'll have a closer connection to God. You'll have a closer connection to yourself, and you'll have a closer connection to the world. I know that when I go and visit people on behalf of my father, Rabbi Eckstein, and give them aid on behalf of the fellowship, Christians and Jews around the world, millions of Christians and Jews who come together with a fellowship, and enable the needy to have food and clothing, and orphans to have shelter, and elderly to have medicine that they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. This is all in the vision of the Bible, and that we bring Jewish people home from around the world, and I welcome them in Israel, and I use my words. And I say, these are blessings from Christians and Jews who love you. And these are words of the Bible who have come alive. Words of the Bible that have come alive. Because we've continued to study them and practice them. That we've enabled them to come alive. Not just through our words, but through our actions. Because words equal actions. We read the words of the Bibles that make a promise. We speak the words through studying, and then we take action. And that transforms into people being helped. Elderly who get food and medicine, orphans who get shelter, Jewish people in Iran and Turkey and Muslim countries and Russia and Ukraine who are brought home on wings of eagles in the vision of the Bible. And it's all a connection of these words of prayer. Do you see it? On your side, you pray, you read the Bible, you study, you worship, you use your words, and it turns into actions. Exactly, Carmen. Words equal action. And so you act in order to fulfill the words of God, in order to be blessings unto others, in order to make biblical prophecy come to fruition. And then those people who were sitting in Russia or Ukraine or Morocco or Turkey who prayed to God, bring me home to Israel, your reading the Bible and taking action transformed into action for them, bringing them home into Israel. We're all connected in this. Or the Holocaust survivor who sits in her house in Israel and prays for food. And then the fellowship comes with food. And she said, this is the answer to prayers. I say, you're right. This is the answer to prayers. And it's also what comes out of prayer. Because those Christians and Jews who were studying the Bible and speaking the blessings and praying with their mouth and then transforming it into action, that equaled Holocaust survivors who ended up getting their prayers answered, which is again prayer in fruition. It's all up to us. We have to wake up every morning and say, this world was created for me. That's what Rabbi Nachman says. He says you have to have walk between two pockets, two different thoughts. One, the whole world was created for me. This is a big responsibility. I could change it. I could fix it. I have to act. And the second is that I'm nothing. God is in charge. So I pray with my words and I hope with my actions that this will come through to your heart and that my words will be understood by you and by me and we'll all take action to bring them into fruition. That we have to read the Bible. We have to speak the Bible. We have to live the Bible. We have to believe in the power of prayer, in the power of blessings, and conduct our life accordingly. And then I know that the blessings from heaven will rain down and we will see a very beautiful reality now and future. May it be soon in our days. Amen. Thank you for joining me and see you next Tuesday at the same time from a different location in Israel. God bless you, my friends. Thank you for joining. And if you liked this and you think others can benefit from it, I encourage you to share it as well. Share it with your church, share it with your friends, and I'll put the link in the comment section if you want to turn those prayers into action and see how that benefits a Jewish person in Israel, biblical prophecy coming to fruition. Join the fellowship, which is millions of individuals coming together to change the world. God bless you, my friends, from here in the Holy Land. Shalom.